if you've been feeling like something is fundamentally shifting inside you, like the ground beneath your feet isn't as solid as it used to be, you're not losing your mind, you're waking up. And these 10 signs will prove it to you. There's a transformation happening right now in your consciousness, but nobody talks about it. Not your friends, not your family, not even the people going through it themselves. Because spiritual awakening doesn't announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. It creeps in quietly, through subtle shifts in how you see yourself and the world around you. Today, we're going to uncover the 10 silent signs that reveal you're closer to a major breakthrough than you think. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly where you are on this path. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Spiritual awakening isn't some mystical event reserved for monks sitting on mountaintops. It's not about seeing visions or having supernatural experiences. The real awakening is far more subtle and honestly far more uncomfortable than that. You see, we spend our entire lives building an identity. We create this story about who we are, what we want, what we believe, and how the world works. We become so attached to this story that we think it's the absolute truth. We think we are this person we've invented. But then something happens. Maybe it's a crisis. Maybe it's just time. Maybe it's exhaustion from playing the same role over and over again. And suddenly, the story starts to crack. The person you thought you were begins to feel like a costume that doesn't fit anymore. This is terrifying for most people. Because if you're not who you thought you were, then who are you? If your beliefs about reality start crumbling, what's left to stand on? This is the challenge of spiritual awakening. It's not about gaining something new. It's about losing everything you thought was solid and real, and the worst part, nobody prepares you for this. Society doesn't give you a roadmap for what to do when your entire sense of self starts dissolving. So you feel alone, confused, and often like something is deeply wrong with you, but nothing is wrong. Something is finally going right. Let me walk you through the 10 signs that reveal this transformation is already happening to you. Sign 1, time feels different. You've probably noticed that your relationship with time has changed. The past doesn't hold the same weight it used to. Those old stories you used to tell yourself about what happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago, they're starting to feel like they happened to someone else. Because in a way, they did. And the future, that place you used to project all your hopes and fears onto, it's not pulling at you the same way anymore. You're finding it harder to worry about things that haven't happened yet. Not because you've become careless, but because you're realizing that the only moment that actually exists is right now. This isn't about positive thinking or living in the moment because some self-help book told you to. This is a genuine shift in your perception. You're beginning to understand that time, the way we normally think about it, is a mental construct. It's a story we tell ourselves to make sense of experience. When you start to wake up, that story loses its grip. You begin to experience life as it actually is, which is a continuous flow of now. The past exists only as a memory in this moment. The future exists only as a thought in this moment. Everything is always happening now. This realization can be disorienting at first. Your mind has been trained to live everywhere except the present. But as this sign deepens, you'll find a strange kind of peace in it. Because when you're truly here right now, most of your problems disappear. They exist in the past or the future, but not here. Sign 2, you're losing interest in drama. There was a time when you were fully invested in the drama of your life and the lives of others. The conflicts, the gossip, the need to be right, the need to defend yourself, the excitement of problems and their solutions. All of it felt important and real. But now, It's starting to feel exhausting and pointless. You're noticing that most drama is just noise. It's people caught in their own stories, defending their own identities, fighting battles that don't actually matter, and you're finding it harder to participate. This doesn't mean you've become cold or uncaring. It means you're seeing through the game. You're realizing that most of what we call problems are just thoughts we're taking too seriously. Most conflicts are just egos bumping into each other. When someone tries to pull you into an argument, you might find yourself just not engaging, not because you're being passive, but because you genuinely don't see the point anymore. You understand that winning an argument doesn't change anything real. It just reinforces everyone's positions. Your friends might think you've changed, become distant or aloof, but you haven't moved away from them. You've moved away from the illusion that drama is meaningful. And once you see through that illusion, you can't unsee it. This is a sign of awakening, because drama is fuel for the ego. It's how the false self stays alive and feeling important. When you lose interest in drama, the ego starts to starve. And that's when real transformation can begin. Sign 3, silence becomes attractive. You used to need noise, music, television, conversation, social media, anything to fill the space. Silence felt uncomfortable, even threatening, because in silence you had to face yourself, and that wasn't always pleasant. But something has shifted. Now you're craving silence. You're seeking out moments of quiet. You're finding that being alone doesn't feel lonely anymore. It feels necessary. This happens because you're beginning to discover that silence isn't empty. It's full. When you stop filling your awareness with constant noise and distraction, you start to notice something underneath it all, a presence, a stillness that was always there but was covered up by all the mental chatter. The stillness isn't boring or dead. It's alive, vibrant, peaceful. It's your natural state before you learn to identify with your thoughts and your story. Most people are terrified of this silence because they think it means they'll disappear. And in a way, they're right. The person you think you are, that collection of thoughts and memories and opinions, that does start to fade in silence. But what's left isn't nothing. It's everything. You're starting to understand that you're not just your thoughts. You're the awareness in which thoughts appear. And that awareness doesn't need constant stimulation to exist. It just is. The more you rest in this silence, the more you realize it's not separate from sound or activity. It's the background of all experience. And when you live from that place, life becomes simpler, clearer, more direct. Sign 4, material things stop satisfying you. There was a time when buying something new gave you a real hit of pleasure. A new phone, new clothes, a new car, whatever it was. There was excitement in acquisition, in having more, in upgrading your life. But lately that excitement has been fading. You buy something you thought you wanted, and the satisfaction lasts maybe a day, maybe an hour, maybe not at all. You're starting to see through the game of consumerism. This doesn't mean you've become anti-materialist or that you judge people who enjoy things. It means you're realizing that objects can't fill the emptiness you've been trying to fill. That emptiness isn't a hole that needs to be plugged with stuff. It's actually the space of your own being, and it doesn't need filling at all. Our entire economy is based on the idea that you're incomplete and need external things to become whole. Buy this and you'll be happy. Achieve that and you'll be fulfilled. Get enough stuff and you'll finally feel like you've made it. But you're waking up to the fact that this is a lie. Not because material things are bad, but because they can't give you what you're actually looking for. What you're looking for is a sense of completeness, of being okay, of being enough. And that can't come from outside. When you stop believing that the next purchase or achievement will finally make you happy, you're free. Free to enjoy things without needing them. Free to work toward goals without being enslaved by them. Free to have or not have without it affecting your fundamental sense of peace. This is one of the most liberating signs of awakening because it cuts the cord between your well-being and external circumstances. Sign 5. You're questioning everything you were taught. The beliefs you inherited from your parents, your culture, your religion, your education. They're all starting to feel suspect. Not necessarily wrong, but not automatically true either. You're realizing that most of what you believe, you never chose. It was installed in you before you were old enough to question it. And now you're questioning it. What is success, really? What does it mean to be a good person? Is the way you've been taught to live actually the best way? Do the rules you've been following actually make sense? Or are they just arbitrary agreements that everyone pretends are absolute truth? This questioning can be unsettling because it pulls the rug out from under your certainty. You used to know how things worked. Now you're not sure of anything. But this uncertainty is actually a sign of intelligence, of awakening, because certainty is the hallmark of a closed mind. When you're certain, you stop looking, stop questioning, stop growing. You just defend what you already believe. Uncertainty, on the other hand, keeps you open. It allows you to see things as they are rather than as you've been told they are. It's the beginning of real wisdom. You might find that some of your old beliefs still work for you, and that's fine, but now you hold them lightly as working hypotheses rather than absolute truths, and you're willing to update them when new understanding arrives. This flexibility, this willingness to not know, is a profound sign that you're waking up from the dream of fixed identity and fixed reality. Now we come to perhaps the most significant signs, the ones that indicate you're not just beginning this process, but are deep in it. Sign 6. You feel like you're going crazy. This might be the most important sign to recognize because it's the one that scares people the most. If you've been feeling like you're losing your grip on reality, like the person you were is dissolving and you don't know who's taking their place, this is actually a sign that the awakening is accelerating. And I know how that sounds. It sounds like I'm telling you that going crazy is a good thing. But hear me out, because what you're experiencing isn't insanity, it's the opposite. It's sanity breaking through years of conditioning and false beliefs. Here's what's happening on a deeper level. Your ego, that false sense of self you've been maintaining your whole life, is starting to break down. And the ego's job is to make you think it's essential for your survival. It's convinced you that without it, you won't exist. So as it weakens, it floods you with fear, confusion, and the sense that something is terribly wrong. It throws everything it has at you to make you stop this process and go back to sleep. Because the ego knows that if you wake up completely, it's finished. But nothing is wrong. In fact, something is finally going right. The structure that was limiting you is collapsing. The walls of the prison you didn't even know you were in are crumbling. And yes, that feels like death because to the ego, it is death. But you are not the ego. You are what remains when the ego falls away. You are the awareness that's watching all of this happen. You are the space in which all experience occurs. The ego is just a pattern of thinking, a habit of identifying with your thoughts and your story. And that habit is breaking. Think about it this way. Imagine you've spent your entire life wearing a mask, but you've worn it for so long that you forgot it was a mask. You started to believe that the mask was your actual face. Then one day, the mask starts to crack and fall away. That would be terrifying, wouldn't it? You'd feel like you were disappearing, like you were losing yourself. You're not losing yourself, you're losing the fake version of yourself. Your real face was always underneath. This face can be dark, really dark. You might feel depressed, anxious, lost. You might have moments where you can't tell what's real anymore. You might look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back at you. You might be in the middle of a normal conversation and suddenly feel like you're watching yourself from the outside, like you're not really there. You might wake up in the morning and have a moment of pure confusion about who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. This is sometimes called the dark night of the soul, and it's a necessary part of deep transformation. Every spiritual tradition talks about it. The mystics, the sages, the awakened ones, they all went through this. It's not a bug in the system. It's a feature. The reason it's so dark is because you're in between identities. The old you is dying, but the new you hasn't fully emerged yet. You're in the void, the gap, the unknown. And humans hate the unknown. We'd rather cling to a painful identity than face the terror of not knowing who we are. But this void is actually sacred space. It's the womb of transformation. Nothing new can be born without it. The key is to not resist it. And I know that's easier said than done. Every instinct in you is screaming to make it stop, to get back to normal, to feel like yourself again. But normal was the problem. Yourself was the illusion. Don't try to put yourself back together the way you were. Don't try to return to the comfort of your old identity. That comfort was a lie. It was the comfort of a familiar prison cell. Let yourself fall apart. Trust that what you're moving toward is more real than what you're leaving behind. This requires tremendous courage. You're being asked to die while you're still alive, to let go of everything you thought you knew about yourself and reality, to walk into the darkness with no guarantee of what you'll find there. But here's the thing. You don't actually have a choice. Once this process starts, you can't stop it. You can slow it down by resisting, which only makes it more painful. Or you can surrender to it and let it carry you where it's going to carry you anyway. What helps during this phase is to remember that feelings are not facts. Just because you feel like you're going crazy doesn't mean you are. Just because you feel like you're disappearing doesn't mean you are. These are just sensations, just experiences passing through awareness. They're not the truth of what you are. The truth of what you are is the awareness itself, which is always stable, always present, always okay, even when everything else is falling apart. It also helps to know that this phase doesn't last forever. It feels like it will. It feels like you'll be stuck in this confusion and darkness for the rest of your life. But you won't. There's a dawn coming. There's a clarity on the other side of this that you can't even imagine right now. A simplicity, a peace, a sense of being at home in yourself in a way you've never experienced before. This is the moment of death and rebirth. And it only feels like madness because you've been taught that your thoughts and your identity are who you are. When those start to dissolve, it feels like you're dissolving, but you're not. You're just being revealed. The real you, the one that was always there beneath all the noise and confusion, is finally getting a chance to emerge. And that real you is more beautiful, more powerful, and more whole than the false self ever was. Sign 7. Synchronicities are increasing. You've started to notice that coincidences are happening more frequently. You think of someone and they call. You need information and it appears. You're in the right place at the right time in ways that seem statistically impossible. You walk into a bookstore with no plan, and the exact book you needed falls off the shelf in front of you. You're struggling with a question, and a stranger says something in passing that answers it perfectly. You meet someone randomly who turns out to be exactly the person you needed to meet. These moments are piling up, and you can't write them all off as chance anymore. This isn't magic or manifestation in the way the New Age movement talks about it, where you supposedly creating reality with your thoughts and attracting things with your vibration. That's not what's happening here. This is something much more interesting and much more real. This is what happens when you start to align with the flow of life rather than constantly swimming against it. Stop trying to force reality to match your plans and preferences. You start to notice that reality has its own intelligence, its own order, its own way of working. And that intelligence is far more sophisticated than anything your individual mind could come up with. When you're trapped in ego consciousness, you're separate from everything else. You're in here, the world is out there, and you have to fight and manipulate to get what you need. Life becomes a struggle, a competition, a battle against circumstances. You're constantly planning, calculating, worrying, trying to control outcomes. And from that perspective, synchronicities either don't happen or you don't notice them when they do, because you're too busy forcing your own agenda to see the subtle ways that life is trying to help you. But as you wake up, you begin to realize that this separation is an illusion. You're not separate from life, you're an expression of it. You're not a separate self moving through an alien universe. You're the universe experiencing itself through this particular form. And when you stop resisting, when you stop trying to control everything, when you relax the grip of the ego even just a little bit, you start to move in harmony with the intelligence that's animating everything. That's when synchronicities appear, not because you're creating them with your mind, but because you're finally in the flow where they were happening all along. You just weren't aware enough to notice. Think of it like this. Imagine you're swimming in a river, but you're trying to swim upstream. You're exhausted, frustrated, making very little progress. All your energy is going into fighting the current. In that state, you're not going to notice the beauty around you, the fish swimming by, the patterns in the water. You're too focused on your struggle. But then you realize you can just turn around and swim with the current. Suddenly everything becomes easy. You're moving faster with less effort. And now you can actually see what's around you. You can notice things. That's what's happening with synchronicities. Life was always showing you signs, always guiding you, always connecting you with what you needed. But you were too busy fighting to notice. These moments of synchronicity are life's way of showing you that you're not as separate or alone as you thought. There's an underlying order, an intelligence, a coherence to existence that you're beginning to sense and align with. Some people call this God, some call it the universe, some call it consciousness, some call it the Tao. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that you're starting to feel connected to it. You're starting to sense that there's something holding all of this together, guiding all of this, and that you're part of it. And here's where it gets really interesting. The more you notice synchronicities, the more they happen. Not because you're making them happen, but because your awareness is opening up. You're becoming more sensitive to the subtle patterns and connections that were always there. It's like when you learn a new word and then suddenly you hear it everywhere. The word didn't suddenly become more common. You just started noticing it. Same thing with synchronicities. As you wake up, your perception sharpens. You start seeing the web of connections that links everything together. This can be really encouraging during the difficult phases of awakening, when you're feeling lost and confused and like you're going crazy. A synchronicity can feel like a sign that you're on the right path. Like the universe is winking at you, saying, keep going, you're not alone, I've got you. And maybe that's exactly what it is. Maybe life is intelligent enough to know when you need a sign and caring enough to give you one. Or maybe synchronicities are just what it looks like when you're finally paying attention to reality instead of being lost in your thoughts. Either way, they're a gift. They're breadcrumbs leading you deeper into the mystery. What's important is not to get too caught up in trying to interpret every synchronicity or make them mean something they don't. Sometimes a synchronicity is just a moment of connection, a reminder that you're part of something larger. It doesn't need to have a specific message. It doesn't need to tell you what to do next. It's just life being alive, being conscious, being playful. Enjoy these moments. Let them delight you. Let them remind you that reality is far stranger and more magical than you were taught to believe. But don't build a whole belief system around them. Don't turn them into proof of anything. Just let them be what they are, which is small miracles happening all the time, everywhere, for everyone who has eyes to see them. Sign 8. You see, through social conditioning, you're starting to see the matrix, so to speak. All the invisible rules and expectations that govern human behavior, they're becoming visible to you. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. You notice how people are performing roles they never consciously chose, how they're repeating patterns they learned from their parents, how they're chasing goals they don't actually want, because society told them these goals equal success. You see how much of human life is just collective agreement on what's important, what's valuable, what's real. And you're realizing that most of these agreements are arbitrary. They're not truth. They're just stories we've all decided to believe. This can make you feel alienated from society because you can't participate in the game with the same innocence anymore. But it also sets you free, free to choose your own values, free to define success on your own terms, free to live according to what actually matters to you rather than what you've been told should matter. This doesn't mean you become a rebel or drop out of society. It means you engage with society consciously, playfully, without being enslaved by its rules. You can follow the rules when they're useful and break them when they are not, all while understanding that they're just rules, not reality. Sign 9. Compassion arises naturally. Something unexpected is happening. You're becoming more compassionate, but not in a forced or moral way. It's just arising naturally. You look at people who are caught in their suffering, their drama, their unconscious patterns, and instead of judging them, you feel tenderness because you recognize yourself in them. You see that they're not bad or stupid or wrong. They're just asleep the same way you were asleep. This compassion extends even to people who harm others. You understand that hurt people, that everyone is doing the best they can with their current level of consciousness. This doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior, but you see it with more understanding and less judgment. You're also becoming more compassionate with yourself. The harsh self-criticism that used to run your life is softening. You're making mistakes and not destroying yourself over them. You're accepting your humanity, your limitations, your imperfections. This natural compassion is a sign that you're seeing through the illusion of separation, when you truly understand that we're all expressions of the same consciousness, all waves in the same ocean. Harming another makes as much sense as your right hand attacking your left hand. Sign 10, you can hold paradox. This might be the most advanced sign. You're becoming comfortable with contradictions. Things that used to seem mutually exclusive now coexist in your awareness without creating conflict. You can be ambitious and content at the same time. You can work toward goals while being completely okay if you don't achieve them. You can see that life is both meaningful and meaningless, serious and playful, tragic and beautiful, all at once. Your mind used to need everything to fit into clear categories. This is good, that is bad. This is true, that is false. But now you're seeing that reality is far more complex and mysterious than these simple divisions. This ability to hold paradox is a sign of mature awakening, because it means you're no longer trying to reduce life to something your mind can completely grasp. You're accepting that there's a mystery here, that not everything needs to be figured out or resolved. You can live with uncertainty. You can say, "I don't know," without it being a problem. You can hold opposing ideas without needing to pick a side. This flexibility of mind is freedom. So there you have it, 10 silent signs that you're closer to a major spiritual awakening than you might have realized. If you recognize several of these signs in your own life, don't panic. Don't try to stop what's happening. This transformation is the most important thing that can happen to a human being. It's what we're all here for, whether we know it or not. The awakening process isn't always comfortable. In fact, it's often deeply uncomfortable. But it's leading you somewhere real, somewhere true, somewhere that makes all the struggle worthwhile. You're not losing yourself. You're losing the false version of yourself that was never real to begin with. And what's emerging is your true nature, the consciousness that's been here all along, waiting to be recognized. Trust the process. Be patient with yourself. Know that you're not alone in this, even when it feels like you are. Countless others are going through this same transformation. We're all waking up together, each at our own pace, each in our own way. The world needs people who are awake, who can see through the illusions, who can live from a place of presence and peace rather than fear and separation. By going through this process, you're not just changing yourself, you're changing the world.